Okay, let's unpack this. We got 24 hours, a disgraced but relentless government operative, a brilliant anarchist who sees the world as a programmable system, and a ticking clock driving toward an orchestrated catastrophe.
It's an incredible scenario.
Mm.
And the sources we've shared, I mean, you've seen them. The operational annotations, psych profiles, after-action reports, they all chart this single, continuous, and brutally detailed day starting at 8 p.m. PST.
Right. And our mission today is pretty straightforward, but it's also really complex. We need to go beyond just the plot points.
Exactly. We're here to extract the core operational insights, the philosophy behind it all. How did complex mathematical principles, we're talking systems theory, chaos theory, get applied to organized crime and, large-scale systemic disruption? We're trying to understand the architecture of the chaos.
And I think the most fascinating place to start this deep dive is that the clock starts when our hero is at his absolute lowest. It's 8 p.m. PST, and Jack Bauer is shackled in a federal holding facility in LA.
Yeah, he is disgraced, he is rogue, and he's wanted for the murder of a man named Tinfas. So, from the government's perspective, he's not an asset anymore.
He's a liability, a confirmed institutional liability.
And this status, this complete removal from the system, is immediately central to the threat. While Bauer is trapped, the sources confirm this imminent danger. A genius anarchist, Zapata, plans to plunge America into chaos in 24 hours.
Through an unthinkable assassination.
Right. And the critical operational failure here is that the government, the very institutions meant to detect this kind of high-level threat, they have zero actionable intelligence. They are completely in the dark.
And their internal resistance, their blindness, really reflects that. If you look inside CTU headquarters at that moment, the antagonism toward Bauer is palpable.
It's thick. You've got Regional Director Ryan Chappell, the quintessential bureaucrat who just cannot stand the idea of an untouchable field agent.
He dismisses Bauer's entire reputation as hero worship. He even says, "I know exactly what Jack Bauer did," referring to that supposed murder.
That mindset is the definition of institutional failure. Chappell is so fixated on the visible, surface-level crime, the murder, that he's completely missing the high-level context, the why.
It's a failure imagination.
Totally. And it's contrasted so sharply by the immediate, fervent loyalty of Peter Jimenez, who's just a junior agent.
But Jimenez spent 2 months in the field under Bauer. He gets it. He defends Bauer, arguing he had cause for the murder, basically insisting that desk jockeys shouldn't judge decisions made in the heat of the moment.
And then you have Christopher Henderson, the director of field ops, caught right in the middle. He's uncomfortable with Chappell's certainty. He's watching everything unfold. And you can tell he senses that things are way more nuanced than his boss will admit.
It just paints this picture of a counter-terrorism unit that's basically paralyzed by its own internal politics.
And while they're all busy debating Bauer's morality, the first phase of the operation against him is already underway, inside the jail.
Which is actually Zapata's attempt to neutralize the one rogue asset who could stop him.
Exactly. At 8:11 p.m., Bauer, despite being in chains, he senses something is fundamentally wrong.
This part is a masterclass in operational instinct. He's completely exposed, but his experience is his shield. He walks into a shower room that's empty, but it's roaring with water and clouded with steam.
It's an environment that's been carefully, deliberately manufactured to mask sight and sound.
A perfect kill zone. He knows instantly that he's been set up.
The assailants, 3 fully clothed Latino inmates, they just confirm the setup. They're professional. One of them is wielding a sharpened toothbrush, a classic improvised weapon.
But Bauer isn't just focused on the immediate threat. This is what sets him apart. He's gathering intelligence even as he's fighting for his life. He spots this ornate tattoo on one guy's neck, Immies, in Gothic letters.
And later, on another guy's forearm, a clear MS-13 tattoo.
The moment he sees that tattoo, the whole game changes.
Right. This isn't some random prison shanking over gang turf or respect. This is organized. It's external targeting.
Which implies an incredible reach. Zapata's organization can penetrate a high-security federal holding facility and just activate a hit squad on demand.
And his tactical response is just pure, painful efficiency. He's barefoot on slick tiles, but he weaponizes his environment. He slams one guy into the wall, uses his cuffed hand to do this painful groin twist, and follows it with a devastating elbow strike.
He's not fighting fair. He's fighting to neutralize, confirm the source of the attack, and survive. The goal is intelligence extraction.
And the sources are explicit. He confirms the MS-13 affiliation on that first attacker.
So he uses this intense, brutal encounter to get his first piece of intelligence. Later, when he's talking with a corrections officer, Lafayette, and his cellmate, Emil Ramirez, the reality of the threat really sinks in.
It does, because Ramirez confirms the sheer danger of MS-13, the Mara Salvatruchas. He tells that terrifying story about the gang peeling the skin off a former member's hands 7 years after the fact.
That just shows their patient organizational tenacity. They don't forget.
And that detail, that 7-year vendetta, is key. It contrasts so sharply with the quick, explosive nature of the jail fight. It suggests MS-13 operates on these long-term, predictable patterns.
And it provides the pivot point for the whole plot. Ramirez reveals he knows a guy who used to be one of them. Now they work for him sometimes.
That one phrase. Now they work for him sometimes.
That's everything. It confirms a critical link between low-level gang violence and a sophisticated external operator who has co-opted their structure for a high-level plot.
A plot planned for tomorrow. Bauer's suspicion is validated. This isn't personal, it's operational.
And the violence escalates again at 9:23 p.m. in the library. He gets jumped by 4 Salvatruchas, and they ignore Ramirez completely. They're only there for Bauer.
His response is just pure survival instinct. The sources talk about stomping, eye-tearing, overwhelming force to put down the threat immediately.
It's savage, but it's necessary because the clock is ticking. And Ramirez, now completely terrified, confirms the operation for tomorrow is real. But back at CTU, the organization is just busy imploding.
Exactly. Regional Director Ryan Chappelle collapses in the conference room. Medics are doing CPR using a defibrillator. But just before he passes out, his last barely audible word directed at Henderson is, "Don't, Bauer."
What a chilling moment. It just throws the entire institutional assumption about Bauer into doubt. Was he poisoned? Was it delirium? Or was he trying, through his hatred, to warn Henderson to keep the system away from the op?
Well, with what we learn later, it suggests he was desperately trying to protect the institutional boundaries of the secret op. But in that moment, CTU just assumes it's a health crisis.
They're masking the possibility of high-level enemy penetration, that institutional blindness again. They miss that their own leadership might have been targeted because they're so focused on Bauer as the sole threat.
Okay, so let's shift focus to the architect of all this. We're moving into part 2 now, the late hours, focusing on the anarchist's philosophy and that big red herring CTU starts chasing.
This is where we really analyze the mind of Jorge Rafael Marquez, who goes by Zapata.
And the sources describe him as a certified genius from Chiapas, Mexico. His specific gift wasn't just general intellect. It was the ability to recognize, project, and exploit patterns in complex systems.
And this isn't just abstract math. The sources give concrete examples, right? He could look at a disorganized soybean farm and project the precise patterns for maximum yield.
He solved a battered Rubik's Cube in 37 seconds just by running the solution in his mind. Seeing the moves before they were made, he treats social systems and physical systems like they're a math problem.
What's fascinating is his motivation. It wasn't simple greed. He became radicalized after his family was shot protesting government neglect.
So his goal is fundamental anarchy. He wants to break the established system because he sees it as inherently flawed, rigged to favor the powerful. He compares it to sharecropper scams or MS-13 extortion rackets. The system itself is the villain.
And his method reflects that systemic view. At 10:09 p.m., he sets off a small explosion at Union Station. The sources are clear. This blast was deliberately small, designed to look like a simple diesel fuel incident.
Right. It wasn't for physical destruction. It was for strategic disruption.
This is where we get into the technical analysis of his move. He didn't need to kill people to cause chaos. He targeted a critical nexus point.
He knew that one small incident would create a massive nonlinear ripple effect that would propagate across LA, Santa Barbara, San Diego, even Chicago transit services. It was his proof of concept for systemic failure.
He literally saw the city as an interconnected machine, and he found the right lever. Zapata's philosophy is captured perfectly in one quote: "All interconnected, all interdependent. Choose the right spot, identify the nexus. One bomb, even a small bomb, could affect the lives of millions."
He's showing the government just how fragile its perceived order truly is.
And while Zapata is demonstrating this, CTU is actively chasing a massive and very believable red herring.
Based on Chappelle's early orders, Tony Almeida starts investigating Mataram imports, owned by Ridwan Bashir, who is Indonesian. This entire path leads them toward Jamaah Islamiyah, or JI.
And this isn't just a random distraction. It's sophisticated counterintelligence. JI is a very real terrorist group responsible for the Bali and Marriott bombings. It's a genuine threat, which makes it the perfect distraction.
Of course, CPU would prioritize that. A real-world threat over some theoretical genius anarchist they don't even know exists yet.
Meanwhile, Peter Jimenez, still loyal to Bauer, is trying to run his own inquiry. He visits Terry Bauer at 10 o'clock.
And Terry, who still thinks Jack murdered Tinfass, is distrustful, but her insight is crucial. She says their marriage was strained, Jack never shared work details, but she knows Jack is capable of anything.
That implies both immense competence and an unsettling capacity for violence, the two poles that really define Bauer.
And Tony's JI lead only deepens the confusion. Bashir identifies the Marriott attack vehicle as a van, not a truck, which was the official story. This intimate knowledge proves he's genuinely connected to JI.
So Tony's suspicion is solid. He thinks they're targeting the upcoming Southeast Asian Trade Conference, the Pacific Rim Forum.
And so CTU is spending vital hours and resources chasing a very real, very dangerous, but ultimately secondary threat. It's a critical tactical success for Zapata. He's overloaded the system with plausible noise so the real signal gets lost.
But Bauer, locked away, realizes he can't rely on this compromised and confused system. The critique suggested we look at the jailbreak as a study in controlled chaos. And that's exactly what it is.
Precisely. At 11:28 p.m., we see him execute this extreme, high-risk operational pivot. He needs out, and he knows the only way to escape is to create overwhelming internal chaos.
He uses the shiv to cut his own palm and neck, faking a massive injury, screaming that another inmate cut him. He weaponizes the razor, forcing the guard to open doors, and this just triggers a full-scale riot.
Hundreds of prisoners jumping off railings, fights breaking out. It's localized chaos, deliberately created.
He exploits the system's weaknesses: panic, fear, procedure. He chokes out a second guard, forces Ramirez to follow him because he knows Ramirez is an intelligence asset, and they escape through the courtyard under a hail of rubber bullets.
And crucially, he forces the heavy gate closed behind them. He contains the chaos he created, sealing it off.
The moment he's outside, he shifts immediately to counterintelligence. He contacts Terry for that spare 6-hour, the extra mags, and a new ID he'd hidden near La Strada.
The level of preparation there is incredible. He anticipated his own eventual failure and entrapment.
And his evasion strategy is a direct counter to established tracking methods. He tells Ramirez they have to use random, chaotic movements, not predictable routes. He hotwires a Nissan Maxima.
And here's a detail that speaks volumes. He smashes the window with a rock that has the word serenity carved into it. It's this cynical operational joke, a mark of pure unpredictability.
He's actively manufacturing noise to evade the predictable patterns of a police pursuit. It's chaos theory applied to counter-surveillance.
Which brings us into part 3, the action phase, where tactical errors, synthesis, and deep betrayals characterize the late night and early morning. This segment really highlights just how pervasive Zapata's infiltration is.
Right. At 1:14 a.m., we see the cover-up. An intruder, one of Zapata's people, calmly enters UCLA Medical Center and switches Ryan Chappelle's blood sample with a clean vial.
This ensures the toxicology test comes back negative. It masks the barbiturate poisoning and makes the doctors assume a natural collapse. That is proof of hostile penetration at the highest level. Chappelle was neutralized. The enemy is inside the loop, controlling the narrative.
Meanwhile, Tony Almeida is still pursuing the red herring, but with incredible field skill. He's sticking out the little Java cafe, watching Bashir. He disguises himself as a busboy, and he sees that Bashir is reporting to another man, who Tony suspects is the terrorist Ensep Sankar.
So Tony is following a real trail. But the contrast between his human-level intelligence and Zapata's macro-level philosophy is fascinating. Around 1:29 a.m., Zapata is on the metro with his associate, Aguilar. They see a predator trying to prey on a girl.
And Zapata uses a stun gun on the guy. But his explanation for it isn't chivalry, it's systemic.
Yes. He says he has already established a connection, created an us where it did not exist. He's imposing himself on her. It's a predictable violation of systemic boundaries.
And he needs validation. The sources say he plays the disappointed tutor, wanting Aguilar to confirm that he is always right. It just underscores the arrogance of his genius. He thinks he can predict and control everything.
That confidence is about to be tested. Bauer arrives at La Strada, the drop point. At 2:07 a.m., he gets the weapon. But Thierry is still there, waiting.
We have to pause here. This is the personal cost of the operation exploding into his family life. Her presence just shatters his operational distance.
Her terror confirms her new perception of him. My husband is a killer. She's forced to confront the moral ambiguity of the man she married.
And immediately after this emotional gut punch, the operational reality hits. An ambush. A black Chrysler 300C opens fire.
Jack reacts instantly, kills the passenger, forces the car to flee. He shoves Terry away, telling her she has to maintain her innocence. Her alibi must be that she was asleep. He involved her. Now he has to erase that involvement.
While Bauer's dealing with that, Tony is connecting the dots on the JI threat. He finds an email about Papa Rashad's factory, a code name for an arms deal. The deduction is solid. Sunkar will trade weapons for a computer virus to hit the Pacific Rim Forum conference.
Which sets the stage for the massive tactical failure at UPAC storage at 4:00 a.m. Tony is undercover as an arms dealer, ready to meet Sunkar. He already arrested the real dealer, who was skimming RPGs and M60s from Fort Hood.
The situation couldn't be more messed up, because fugitive Jack Bauer and Ramirez arrive, directed there by their middleman, Vanoan, who is secretly working for Zapata.
So you have undercover Tony executing a critical sting right as fugitive Jack walks in. They see each other, they have this tense, coded conversation that must have just been a punch to the gut for both of them.
And then the whole thing implodes. Deputy Marshal Dan Pascal arrives. He had traced Bauer's stolen car and then Winoan's location. Pascal's focus on just enforcing the law, the predictable action of the system,
Causes a massive accidental shootout. The system, trying to capture its rogue asset, accidentally dismantles its own essential counter-terrorism operation. Sunkar flees, Tony's detained, the OPA is completely compromised by friendly fire.
But Bauer, who's been shot in the arm, executes a critical double play. He recognizes Vanoan is the only active lead to Zapata, so he saves the middleman and drives off with him and Ramirez.
And he sees Tony glaring at him as he flees. This just confirms Tony's belief that Bauer has truly jumped to the dark side.
While he's detained, Tony tells Jimenez he wonders if Bauer took the money or just succumbed to fatigue, using the Tent-Fast murder as a cover story. The institution is now convinced he's a traitor,
Which ensures Bauer has to operate completely outside the system for the rest of the day.
This brings us to part 4, the critical intelligence phase, where the entire premise about Bauer is flipped on its head, and we finally get the philosophical clarity we've been waiting for.
At 5:20 a.m., Jack is still chasing that lead. He tracks Vanoan's information to the Biltmore Hotel, eager to meet the man in charge.
But this is a devastating moment of misidentification. He chases a man down the stairwell and shoots him center mass. He checks the body, sees the ME's MS-13 tattoo, same as the jail attacker.
And in his exhaustion, he believes he's killed Zapata. He confuses the alias Aguilar with the mastermind. He's ready to surrender to Marshal Pascal.
But the revelation hits him as Pascal is driving him away. I got the wrong man, he thinks. Jesus, I got the wrong man, and now I'm stuck in here. He's just removed a key intelligence source, and the anarchist is still free.
And now the operational twist that explains everything. Nina Myers, investigating nervous phone calls from Marcia Tinfas, tracks them to a safe house in Chatsworth.
She discovers 2 FBI agents guarding Adrian Tinfas, who is very much alive.
So the entire foundation of the last 12 hours, the murder, the disgrace, the jailbreak, it was all a lie. A meticulously constructed lie. The mission was a high-level covert op to put Tinfas into witness protection.
And simultaneously to put Bauer undercover inside the jail.
Chappelle and Bauer, despite their public animosity, had agreed this was the only way to catch Zapata. It had to be outside the system, a complete abandonment of predictable protocols.
So Chappelle, the man who collapsed, was the essential institutional partner in the whole operation.
Which explains the cryptic "don't" Bauer warning. He wasn't protecting himself. He was warning Henderson not to interfere with the only asset who had successfully infiltrated Zapata's network. The level of institutional deception is just staggering.
But Bauer is still in custody, which is a problem for the mission. At 6:42 a.m., we see Peter Jimenez, still loyal to the man he believed in, despite his bruised face.
Jimenez tracks down Pascal's car, handcuffs the marshal to the steering wheel, and frees Jack. He's operating purely on loyalty, defying the institution's current narrative.
It's a critical moment of human unpredictability. Jimenez acts based on a personal pattern of faith in Bauer, not operational knowledge. It's an act of chaotic loyalty that saves the day.
But as we later learn, it's tragically misplaced.
So Bauer needs the original mission parameters. He gets a disguise, infiltrates UCLA Medical Center, and forces a doctor to give Chappelle a massive amphetamine injection to wake him up.
Which confirms the barbiturate poisoning that the switched blood test had masked.
Chappelle, barely conscious, confirms the operation was focused on the Zapata resource, and he whispers one crucial name that unlocks the whole thing. Talia Gerver. Rand.
This is where we get to the core intellectual concept of this deep dive. At 8:38 a.m., Talia Gerway, the RAND analyst, explains Zapata's methodology, and she starts by correcting a fundamental misconception. Zapata isn't focused on random chaos. He's focused on breaking structures.
So we need to properly define chaos theory as it applies to social engineering.
Right. Gertwer states it clearly. There's no such thing as chaos. What seems chaotic is actually ordered. Chaos theory is about recognizing that seemingly random outcomes are the result of a huge series of small events that follow deterministic nonlinear rules.
So even if the outcome, like a storm, is unpredictable, the underlying mechanism isn't random. It's just too complex for us to compute in advance. That's the famous butterfly effect. A butterfly flaps its wings in Beijing, and you get a storm in Los Angeles.
Exactly. Zapata's genius is in locating those specific small trigger points, the butterfly flaps, in highly complex systems, and then exploiting the nonlinear rules to guarantee a massive, predictable structural collapse. He's the one person who can see the pattern and project the outcome.
And since his genius is recognizing patterns, his operational security is based on avoiding them himself. Giroir confirms his one obvious pattern is that he follows no patterns.
Which makes him highly unpredictable to conventional law enforcement who are trained to look for repeatable behaviors.
But Bauer, with his street-level intel, provided the one stable pattern that has emerged, the MS-13 connection.
Talia confirms it. Marquez, Zapata, was part of MS-13 in its early days. The ME's tattoo connects the jail attackers and the dead associate, Aguiar, directly to Zapata's past. It is the one predictable human anchor point in the anarchist's life.
The genius, in his attempt to be purely mathematical, reverted to his own past organizational structures for implementation. That's the thread Bauer can now pull.
We're now transitioning into Part 5, the escalation phase, where the pursuit intensifies and the true strategic target is finally identified.
Bauer is forced back into the criminal underworld. At 12:14 p.m., his new plan is incredibly risky. Trade crystal meth for information. Jack, Nina, and Tony capture drug dealer Felix Studhalter, who buys for a Ukrainian gang leader.
This is a massive deviation from protocol. A rogue operative running a high-stakes, off-book drug sting.
And the infiltration at 2 p.m. is tense. Jack, impersonating Studhalter, meets the gang leader, Petrenko, his associate, and Franco, the Slavic assassin he fought at Lopez's house earlier that morning.
He is literally sitting next to a man who knows his fighting style and has tried to kill his asset. The stress of maintaining that cover must have been immense.
And this is where the operational security fails dramatically, because of the second and more damaging betrayal. Studhalter, detained by CTU, is somehow pressured into calling Petrenko on a satellite phone.
And the cover is immediately blown. Felix Studhalter just called?
The resulting chaos is brutal. Jack fights Petrenko, he's subdued, but Sue Mishler, an undercover FBI agent in the meth lab, tasers one of the guys and helps Jack escape.
The high-speed chase down the canyon results in Franco being killed and the meth secured. The fact the FBI already had an asset in place shows law enforcement was working hard, but Zapata was just staying one step ahead.
We shift back to Zapata at 3 p.m., talking to a collaborator, Kyle Rizdo, and focusing again on the philosophy of attack. He reiterates his centers of gravity philosophy. We need to pause and define this.
Right. The center of gravity, or COG, is a military concept. It's the source of strength or power that provides a physical, moral, or economic will to act. If you hit the COG, the entire system collapses.
And for Zapata, the key to disrupting the country is hitting its economy.
So his goal is systemic collapse. He wants to terrify the enemy into changing their entire way of life. The transit disruption was testing the physical COG. Now he's moving to the economic and symbolic COG.
This philosophy explains the crucial error Lopez makes at 3:20 p.m. Under duress, Lopez names Kyle Rizdo as a contact. Jack races to Rizdo's house, finds a guy with a shaved head and green eyes who breaks under questioning. He names the Pacific Rim Forum as the target.
Jack contacts CTU, feeling the massive weight of the day lift for just a second.
But this feeling is short-lived. It leads to Bauer's biggest operational mistake of the entire 24 hours. CTU analysts call him back. The real Kyle Rizdo has just been arrested by Santa Monica PD.
Jack realizes the man he just questioned, the one with the shaved head and green eyes, must have been Zapata in disguise. Watching the event unfold, using the time Jack spent questioning him to execute the final steps of his plan.
Bauer was fooled by fatigue and a faulty pattern match. He screams, "Damn it! Stupid! Bush League! Weak!" It is a moment of pure, raw self-criticism. He let the human variable of exhaustion compromise his system.
And this failure immediately precedes Zapata's operational climax. At 4:41 p.m., 6 different teams simultaneously execute highly calculated, seemingly random, multi-car accidents at specific nexus locations.
The 405 at Sepulveda, 101 at Cahuenga, 10 at 110, plus surface streets.
This is the grand application of his systemic failure theory. By jamming the physical arteries of the city's traffic, he achieves instant, massive, non-lethal chaos across millions of lives.
And crucially, this chaos serves as his operational escape plan later. He has rendered all traditional forms of pursuit, police cars, ambulances, rapid CTU response, completely inert.
But even in the middle of this engineered chaos, Bauer has his breakthrough at 4:49 p.m. CTU analysts are still chasing the JI connection, the PRF, all the diversions. Is a junior analyst, Seth Ludanowski, who mentions his tickets to the Professional Reality Fighting Championships at the Staples Center.
And the connection hits Jack instantly. It ties perfectly into Zapata's cog philosophy. He realizes the Fed chairman, Martin Webb, is in town. Webb is described as the engineer of the U.S. economy, the man with his finger in the dike.
He is the symbolic and economic center of gravity, and he's attending the fight to watch his grandson, Jake Webb, fight Mark Kendall.
It's a beautiful strategic misdirection. Zapata focused CTU on a large institutional target, the PRF conference, but his real target is the intimate, personal nexus point for the economy's symbolic leader.
With the city paralyzed, Bauer commandeers a helicopter to navigate the clogged arteries, racing toward the Staples Center and the climax of this 24-hour hunt.
Which moves us into part 6, the climax, the betrayal, and the aftermath. Zapata is positioned calmly in the stands near Webb, supremely confident.
And the method of assassination is the perfect reflection of his psychological manipulation. The weapon isn't a bomb, it's Mark Kendall, an aging fighter. Kendall has an envelope with instructions: kill his opponent Jake Webb in the ring, and a large bank account will be activated for his daughter's medical bills.
Zapata is banking on the predictable pattern of human despair. He timed this for maximum psychological effect. Kendall is washed up, he's expected to lose, feel crushing despair, and then accept the deadly offer to save his child.
It's a clean, internal neutralization designed to crush Martin Webb emotionally and economically, hitting the heart of the cog.
Jack arrives and confronts Webb, scanning the crowd, but the threat is too subtle. He leaves the stands to search the employee areas, acting on instinct. And at 6:54 p.m., the consequences of a long day come crashing down in the form of twin betrayals.
First, Jack enters a basement storeroom and is immediately shot in the left shoulder. He turns, wounded, only for Peter Jimenez to attack him, kneeling on his chest, confessing, "I guess it's not so hard to kill you after all."
Wait, Jimenez, the man who was loyal enough to break Bauer out of federal custody, the man whose bruised face implied he suffered for that loyalty.
That level of internal personal deception, using his faith in Bauer to get close enough to kill him, is the ultimate operational shock. It is the deepest cut. Jimenez was operated on mixed loyalties, one to the mission, but a hidden one to Zapata, or some higher traitor.
It confirms the rot was far deeper than just Chappelle's poisoning.
And yet, in the ring, Zapata's genius fails because of the precise kind of unpredictable human variable he specialized in ignoring.
The moment of failure arrives at 7:06 p.m. The fight ends. Mark Kendall, driven not by despair over the loss, but by the intense, overwhelming fear of failing his daughter, a motivation stronger than desperation, he unexpectedly rallies. He defeats Jake Webb.
Webb surrenders via tap-out, and Zapata just watches in bewilderment. He had perfectly calculated the structural pressure points, the finances, the timing, the venue, but he failed to calculate the internal force of a father's love. He couldn't predict the emotional butterfly flap.
Some butterfly had flapped its wings somewhere, the source states. It's the failure of pure mathematical prediction against non-linear human spirit. Kendall's victory neutralizes the assassination plot.
Meanwhile, Bauer kills Peter Jimenez 3 shots to the back after a brutal close-quarters fight and takes his motorcycle key. No time to process the betrayal. He races out to track Zapata.
And Zapata's escape route confirms his planning. He rides onto the paralyzed 110 freeway, using the massive traffic jam he engineered as his personal shield.
When the LAPD helicopter is visible, Zapata stops, retrieves an RPG he had stashed in the shrubbery, and destroys the helicopter. A final, spectacular act of defiance.
But Jack is relentless. He rams Zapata with his motorcycle, launching the anarchist into the dirt. Despite his injuries, Jack crawls through the brambles of the barranca, hunting Zapata methodically, and eventually captures him.
The 24-hour hunt ends with the genius anarchist captured. But the institutional betrayal remains the central loose thread. Coney Almeida is ordered to investigate Peter Jimenez's phone logs to determine who he was truly working for, leaving that critical question unanswered.
When we look back at this whole 24-hour operational dive, the defining theme is just this clash between Zapata's mathematically predicted reality and the messy, chaotic reality of human variables.
Zapata's success was his ability to see and exploit patterns in systems, from traffic to finance. He successfully analyzed the city's center of gravity and paralyzed it, proving his model was sound at the macro level.
But his system collapsed the moment it interacted with human unpredictability. He couldn't predict Kendall's fighting spirit. He failed to predict Bauer's maverick behavior. And most ironically, he failed to account for Jimenez's initial fervent loyalty to Jack, which allowed Bauer to escape.
The genius was just too arrogant to include human emotion in his calculation. He missed the small, deterministic rules that govern the human heart. His theory was excellent for systems, but fatally flawed for humanity.
The key takeaway for you, the learner, is the operational strategy that ultimately prevailed. The necessity of operating outside the system, even to the point of faking a murder, to fight a threat that itself operates outside predictable structures. The centralized institution was too blind and too slow.
Which leads us to our final provocative thought for you to consider. If Zapata's goal was to collapse the U.S. economy by causing terror and systemic failure, and the assassination was foiled, meaning Webb was safe, was Zapata's plan truly foiled? Or did the complete coordinated paralysis of major American infrastructure, those 6 simultaneous accidents that shut down Los Angeles, already achieve his goal of widespread chaos and demonstrated vulnerability, ensuring the economic collapse he predicted was merely delayed?